Okay, welcome viewers. We are currently looking at a trepid cryptocurrency market. Right now, there's longs and shorts all over the place. We have no real direction. SBF could be receiving a subpoena anytime. So it's very, very interesting for everybody that's watching from the sidelines as we are. Now, the purpose for this forum today is to introduce one of Fleamint's advisors, who's Mr. Charles Ogochu, who's the Global Business Development Manager for Amazon Managed Blockchain and Amazon Quantum Ledger Database. We also have Mr. Sean Udin, the COO of Fleamint, and we're here today to also discuss a little bit more about how Web 3.0 will impact e-commerce. So, Charles, do you want to give us a quick introduction to who you are and why you're a Fleamint advisor?
Well, thank you very much. Again, my name is Charles Okochu. I am the Worldwide Business Development Manager for Amazon Managed Blockchain and Quantum Ledger Database at AWS Services. I've been with AWS now for about 3 years, and part of my role is to work with customers on joint go-to-market strategies and also business development for our blockchain services. I also work with our teams to develop like sales plays, use cases, and mechanisms to kind of help understand the needs and the gaps and opportunities of our Web3 customers as they're building, because this is a very new space. I also work with kind of sales account teams and leaders to help develop like more education and readiness programs, because again, we need to train not just our customers, but even our teams within AWS to enable more AWS sales and also help our channel partners to maximize their business success as we start seeing mass adoption of Web3. I've been before AWS. I worked at a cryptocurrency hedge fund. I ran the quantitative investment research and data science team, and also have a long background in financial services and fintech. I worked at market access and internet, helping to direct global teams of network and security architects, and helping them to support IT engineering and operations, and building a global bond trading platform. And also I had a short stint at Major League Baseball, as a network architect, building production infrastructure and, helping to build out websites like MLB.com, Yankees.com, and all the other 30 ballparks. So that's a bit of my background.
Well, Charles, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you as part of the our Fleamint advisory panel so far. You're a super, super knowledgeable person. So we absolutely enjoy you working with us on a week-by-week basis. So Sean, Mr. Sean Udin, our COO, moving over to a question for you really, which is more about as what Charles just previously mentioned, mass adoption. These are the buzzwords that are currently flying around crypto. I mean, what does Web3 and mass adoption mean to you, Sean?
Cool. Well, I think it's really important for us to define the terms for the people who aren't aware, because when we're talking about mass adoption, we do know that we're not there yet. Okay, so the vast majority of people hear Web3 but don't really know what it is. So I think it's important to take people through that little journey and understand that Web 1 was the dial-up web of old HTML websites. I don't know if any of you are old like me. You remember Netscape with the little world spinning around trying to load up a web page. You'd be lucky to get a page done in 5 minutes if it had a picture on it. That was Web 1.0. Web 2.0 is very much characterized by rich media content. YouTube is obviously the darling of that entire sector. Social activity, which involves massive numbers of users being able to interact in real time. Obviously, fiber optic internet's been an important part of that increase. 4G, 5G, all of these things are required for the connection speeds to get the amount of data that people can see at one time, which basically creates a better user experience. In the olden days, it was just black and white text on a page. Then it became moving videos and HD. And then what is next? Well, what's next is Web 3. And it's characterized by ubiquity, which means everybody can get hold of it because those speeds are faster. Characterized by decentralization, insofar as things don't necessarily have to sit in one place. And if you do want ease of access, it does make sense that that content is distributed over a wider network so everybody has a little piece of it. And it's also characterized by the interaction of blockchain. Okay, now what is blockchain? We already know this in our industry, that blockchain is a way of recording information permanently in a decentralized way. Okay, so why do you need that for Web 3.0? You need it so that you could access the parts of a whole from many different areas, which increases the speed you can get it at. Okay, and I'd also say that it speaks particularly to the complete customization of your web experience, where it's already happening in the cookie world, where your preferences are recorded and then the website that you look at when you go and visit it looks a certain way because it knows what you want from that particular company, for example, that is talking to you as a customer. Web 3.0 should allow you as a user of the internet to see what you want to see, that is relevant to you, that is applicable to you, that is useful to you. And the way it achieves that is through many varied means. And I'm sure Charles has some viewpoints on that as well. I mean, what's Web 3.0 to you, Charles?
Well, you kind of covered most of the main topics. I mean, I think you kind of summarized it. Web 1 was, you can call it the static web, the read-only iteration. Web 2 could be seen as read-write, upgrade, and which is what we know as the web today. But I think one of the key drivers of Web 3 was, social media networks. If you remember, over time, when you had the rise of the social media giants like Facebook, the general public became more cognizant about the way their personal data was being harvested by those tech giants and used to create tailored advertisements and marketing. So the vision of Web3 is sort of more democratic version of the web. It's centered around ownership. So you own your own data as opposed to the social media giants owning the data and removing control from the big dominant data companies and other central authorities handling to the masses. So that's kind of where this decentralization, it allows the user to be able to transact business peer-to-peer, cut out intermediaries. It's a great disintermediator, and moving power from those controlling entities. I think the other thing I do want to talk about Web3 is, the fact that there are different paths to the future of Web3. I mean, some of the technologies that we're beginning to see being deployed, like decentralized finance, which is helping to visualize and disintermediate even the financial sector, removing the need for central banks, payment processors, and the like. And we've seen lots of hacks of some of these credit agencies, and so moving that information back to the end user is again part of what Web3 hopes to accomplish. And then tokenization of assets, of non-fungible tokens, being able to have a class of digital assets that live on a blockchain, and for NFTs where each token is unique and identical and non-identical, and you can see a lot of potential use cases for NFTs, and that's beginning to kind of change the landscape, and you could see it change things like tamper proof identification, concert ticket sales. But for me, I think one area where Web3 would, I think we're going to see more adoption of Web3 is in physical assets, digital and real world assets, ownership of real estate, of art, of artwork. And that's kind of why, to answer your earlier question, James, about Fleetmint, is why I was attracted to Fleetmint, and I like the use case. And Fleetmint's providing that gap between like intangible and tangible digital assets, and it's helping to create a global community and an NFT marketplace with real world items. For me, that's where we're going to see the biggest bang for our buck, for both brands and consumers, and also help, having to overcome the barriers to Web3, holding those old methodologies. Existing customers, for instance, don't understand what NFTs are, and your platform and some of the other platforms I'm seeing will help them understand the potential benefits. And again, people haven't really appreciated the turnkey real-world applications of NFTs. I'm talking to different companies and also agencies, state and local government, federal agencies, so they can better understand those applications and start to bring about the mass adoption. And some of the other things you guys are doing in the area of like loyalty exchange, loyalty points, helping buyers and sellers to exchange NFTs and company tokens, and creating that seamless secondary market. So that's to answer your other question, James, that's why I think Fleeman has a role to play in this Web3 ecosystem.
Fantastic. Well, really, really appreciate that. And there was something that you actually mentioned during your answer, which I'd like to challenge, because the big part of cryptocurrency is decentralization. But as we see global regulations coming out in the markets, especially with things like the travel rule, it seems as though governments are now tracking and tracing wallets and wallet infrastructure. So do we really believe in the next 3 to 4 to 5 to 10 years in crypto that we will be decentralized, or do we feel that potentially, Charles, do you feel that the governments will eventually end up taking over where everything's tracked and traced, just very, very similar to the international transfers like the SEPA transfers in Europe, or other transfers like that where the network is all tracked and traced? Do we ever believe that crypto will get to that place?
Sean, do you want to take this, or you want me to take it?
I mean, I think we can both do it. I mean, look, regulation's coming for sure, isn't it? I mean, we know that the governments want to look at these things, and we do know that we have to prepare with this in mind. I mean, Fleeman is looking at KYC, and at the end of the day, if you are bridging the gap between physical and intangible assets, for example, we have a huge amount of real estate on the platform, okay? If you want to buy a villa in Thailand, you are not going to be buying it and then turning up and flashing your web wallet number, okay? That's not going to be able to happen. You're going to have to fill in the documentation in the real world and prove who you are. And obviously then you can take physical possession of that item, even down to something smaller like art. You may buy a sculpture in an NFT format. We want to send you the physical analog. If we don't know where you live, we're not going to be able to send you that item. I mean, this is the reality of physical transactions, okay? What we do though is by being in that Web3 spaces, we can explore more innovative financial products that are currently not within that tracking and tracing zone. We are preparing for when that day comes. But at this current time, we are able to democratize finance in a wider spread and make things truly global and truly cross-border through the use of decentralized autonomous organizations, through the use of our NFT debt chip programs. They're all ways for people to access finance that they can't do in the traditional system. And they're currently outside the bounds of all of those kind of regulations. Now, don't get me wrong, we don't have a problem with regulation. What we have a problem with the lack of clarity of regulation. And I think, Charles, do you want to add on that point? Because this could be a 1 hour discussion on its own.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me, by the way? Just want to make sure.
Yeah, clear, loud and clear.
So, James, I think the best way to put it is there's a popular saying here in the United States. You made a joke earlier about the U.S. There's one thing that's certain in life, and that is death and taxes, right?
Yeah.
If you remember back in the Web2 days, when a little bookseller named Amazon first started selling things online, one of the first problems that came up was you would you go online. It was this magical new technology that allowed you to go on a website and you purchase a book or a widget from one state, and then it'd be delivered in the other state. And there was a question of which state do you pay? Which state taxes do you pay? Do you pay taxes from the state you bought the goods from, or do you pay taxes from the state that you currently are living? And that problem ping-ponged back and forth until they decided to come up with a mechanism, because obviously the Web2 shopping was disrupting real-world e-commerce. And again, the basics of society is around taxation and making sure that those taxes are used for goods. And so government is in the business of ensuring that they get paid their taxes regardless. And part of the reason why this is also important is, if you remember when crypto first became a thing, it was looked at as the dark web. Like, people would go and use it to avoid taxes and get around that. We want that connotation to go away. We want to bring it to to become the standard way of doing things. And the bottom line is, people assume that because you're using a blockchain, you can hide away from what the government. And the fact is, a blockchain records information in an immutable and cryptographic ledger. So you have companies like Elliptic and Chainalysis who are constantly looking at all the various blockchains and be able to pull data regarding transactions that are happening. And the federal agencies, are looking at that. Starting from next year, the IRS, for instance, is going to start collecting, requiring everyone to provide information regarding their crypto transactions. And that's the same thing that will happen in Europe and everywhere else. And that's a good thing. And again, in light of what has happened with the FTX explosion, we do need the regulation in the US and in other countries in order to ensure that, we can leverage the transparency that the blockchain will bring to bring about more adoption of the service, so it's not looked at as a edge use case.
I do.
So I'm going to stop there for a second.
Yeah, I was going to say one last thing to add on this point, right? Is that there is a lot of negative propaganda deliberately pushed towards cryptocurrency as well. For example, recently, a massive headline saying 98% of transactions for Bitcoin are illegal, and this is absolute hogwash. There has been chain analysis done, and it is less than 1% of transactions on the Bitcoin chain that have ever been used for anything nefarious. So there is an agenda, and it's an agenda of fear regarding control. And it's not just the taxation side, because yes, it is important that we do pay taxes in the right way in the right places. But it's also important that innovation is not stifled for fear of central bank currency control. But like I say, this could be a multiple-hour discussion that we could have specifically on this topic. Why don't we schedule that one, James, another day?
Yeah, sure.
We'll call it the death and taxes discussion.
The death and in fact, how about this? We finish our advisor run on the Zeitgeist season, and then when we've got all 10, we then have a big round table with everybody discussing this topic, because it is one of the biggest things in cryptocurrency today, James. So you're so right to bring it up.
Yeah, agreed. And then also looking at what you just said there, Charles, with regards to the disruption of Web 2 when it came to e-commerce and buying goods or apparel or clothing. How do we feel, or Charles, certainly, how do you feel that the metaverse impacts crypto? Because there's going to be digital goods being sold and bought in NFT forms in metaverses, as well as real apparel and real goods and services also being sold. So how does the metaverse impact this entire landscape?
The M word. That's interesting. Well, I mean, I guess, first of all, most people have heard the word metaverse. If you watch the movie Ready Player One, that gives you an example of Hollywood's view of the metaverse. I mean, the metaverse could be looked at as a vision of what many in the computer industry believe is the next iteration of the internet. You could call it Web 4.0 or Web 3.5. So, in the ideal world, there's a single shared, immersive, persistent 3D virtual space where human beings experience life in ways they can't in the real world. And also, Facebook didn't add any help any when it announced that it was rebranding to Meta and would focus on the future metaverse, and they haven't made things any clearer. So from my perspective, just like you have different websites, in the real world, the metaverse is going to be, different, distinct 3D or virtual spaces that are all interconnected together. And some of the technologies that will provide access to this world, such as virtual reality handsets, augmented reality glasses, are evolving quickly, and other critical components of the metaverse, such as adequate bandwidth, like 5G and interoperable standards, are probably beginning to materialize. 5G is being built out to allow that immersive experience. So I think that the way this will work, metaverse means having access to a high level of immersive entertainment experience. This means more attention and more income for your business. You can now lure existing and prospective customers while utilizing virtual goods. You can adopt the concept of digital twinning, which allows you to provide a virtual avatar for your buildings, for structures, for products that customers can browse and interact with virtually and purchase. Since COVID, when everybody was staying at home, we already started seeing kind of the emergence of things like virtual home visits to kind of before you purchase the home, using YouTube videos or VR videos. And we're beginning to see, some of our customer use cases that we're seeing now. We're seeing like meta dealerships where you could don this virtual reality or AR glasses and then actually go check out a virtual car dealership and check out the car, and validate, do a viewing of the car before you purchase. And we're also seeing things like use cases for meta banks, where you can have a virtual reality glass and go into, into a virtual bank and speak to somebody, an actual salesperson who could also be wearing glasses and somewhere in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But it's like you're interacting with a person, and it's a much more more immersive experience than just handling your Chase account or your bank account on your phone. And we also Meta Gallery. So there's a lot of innovation happening in that space. And I'm also, I mentioned previously, one of the areas I'm actually looking forward to is Apple, which is releasing their virtual AR glasses soon. And I look at Apple as one of the few companies that has the ability to set the stage, the scene for an era. Like even Web 1, they came out with the Apple Mac computers. In Web 2 generation, they came out with iPhones, iPads, which allowed you to swipe and interact, beyond just using keyboards. So I think that this new era, there, Apple is also going to play a role. It's one of the companies I pay attention to. And I know pretty much millions of people own Apple phones, so I can see a lot of innovation will be happening, and just in entertainment, so to speak. I mean, if you think about the fact that Apple owns Apple Plus, I can see a merger, and they have this whole content where they can start offering VR content using the glasses as a means, and allowing people to have virtual meetings or virtual watch parties, watching movies. And once that happens, you can be sure that other streaming platforms like Netflix or Amazon Prime will follow soon. And once that happens, it's going to drive more adoption and reduction in prices of these VR devices, because that's been the barrier to entry in most cases.
Totally agree. I mean, Sean, Charles, that was an amazing answer, by the way. But Sean, moving over to you, how does the metaverse really fit into Fleamint's overall ecosystem? Where do we see us as Fleamint building the metaverse, and how are we going to be enriching our users and our customers' lives?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I do want to say that Charles is very enlightening there, mentioning the scaling of hardware to enable the mass adoption and mass penetration of these new technological ideas. And I had never really thought of it from a hardware point of view, even though I use it. I think we take it for granted when we buy an upgraded laptop or an upgraded phone. I mean, if you think about it, what my Samsung phone, because I live in Southeast Asia, Apple phones are hard to get hold of and super expensive by comparison where I live in Indonesia. And they can do more than the iPhone 3 could do, which I thought was an amazing device when it first came out, and I bought one. So it's like, well, actually, in that very short period of time, the hardware that you can fit in your hand has more than 10x'd in its power, more than 10x'd in its ability to deliver a rich experience. So what's going to happen over the next years is actually beyond really our conception. Today we have these Nreal Air glasses, Rokid glasses, and these are Android-based head-up display smart glasses that allow you to display whatever you have on your laptop. Seeing how the metaverse could work with Fleamint, I very much see it as being part of a 3D world and an augmented reality element. And this all ties back to the app that we're going to be building. And I wanted to talk about this part because it does interconnect all of these elements that we're discussing. Because if you think about it, Web3 involves the blockchain, which means you need some cryptocurrency tokens. We're talking about NFTs that are tokenizing real-world assets. We're talking about a marketplace that allows you to trade those assets. Then we're also talking about being able to exchange the world's fiat currencies, normal currencies, and into the cryptocurrencies. So already you're talking about 5 areas which would normally be 5 different companies doing that kind of a thing. Once you integrate that into a wallet, once you start integrating that into our 3D world that we will create for a rich user experience, you're really stepping into the realm of a super app, or really it's a decentralized app, so it's a super DApp. And that would be the first of its kind, really, in crypto at the moment. Most cryptocurrency projects have been about a really cool piece of tech, and it gets hyped around that one piece of the tech. what we're doing is trying to integrate as many cool pieces of tech as possible in as many different areas as possible and wrap them in one thing. And that's what we believe will help for mass adoption. So the user experience will be, I don't need to know that this is cryptocurrency or blockchain or Web 3.0. All I know is that I enter this world, I have a phone app, I can buy things, sell things, interact with things, earn money, play games, have fun, talk to people, all the stuff you want to do, but without necessarily needing to know anything about the technology that's behind it. So that's, I think, where we sit in this space. It's the ease of use that helps with mass adoption.
Yep, and that's as I say, it goes back to what I said about how Apple makes things very easy for your grandma to be able to use it. And then once that happens, it becomes,
Well, there's a I think it's a debunked theory. They call it the 100th monkey system or theory. And the idea is that once 100 monkeys have learned how to do one thing, all the monkeys in a community can do it. It's actually based on a flawed study of some monkeys that started washing coconuts on isolated islands. And after 100 monkeys washed a coconut on one island, all the monkeys on another island started washing coconuts. Now, as I say, it was flawed, but apparently it did inform the way Apple develops its products. Now, I can only testify this anecdotally, but all I know is my firstborn, who's 10 years old now, took an iPad and knew how to slide to open it, slide and look at different pages without being taught this at any point in his life. Maybe at 8-9 months old, he picked it up and started doing it. How is he born with that knowledge of how to interact with a user interface that when I first started using an iPhone was completely alien to me? And I think there is a critical mass of public acceptance of a new technology where everybody just can do it, right? So there is something to that, and I think it's going to happen with us with the use of metaverse, with the use of this ubiquitous technology. There just comes a point where it is normal, and people are almost innately born with that ability, right?
Yeah, Sean, I think it's interesting. My niece, who's she's like about 1.5 years now, she goes to the television and expects to be able to swipe left and right on this because she expects every screen to be a touch screen.
Yeah.
But you actually raised a very interesting point, which I will end the metaverse conversation on, which is, you talked about monkeys and, beyond just VR, AR glasses, there's one other technology which I'm paying very close attention to.
Neuralink,
it's the Neuralink technology by Elon Musk. And as you know, they're actually done certain experiments recently. This is even before Neuralink. There was an Oxford University study about a bunch of monkeys, going back to what you said about monkeys being taught stuff, where they were being taught how to kind of training them on how to even pick up bananas using a robotic arm attached to their brains, right? And initially, they gave them a joystick and they were using it to pick up the monkey, but they were also using it to train. They were recording the monkey's brain activity while they were using the joystick to pick up the monkeys, and they collect the monkeys and eat the bananas. And then at one point, they disconnected the joystick, and at that point, they were using the AI model to replay back the brain activity. So it was doing the job of picking up the bananas. For a while, the monkeys didn't know. They were still trying to use the joystick. And then there was an aha moment when the monkeys realized, hell, I don't have to do this anymore. And it dropped the joystick and started using their brains to actually pick up the bananas to pick up. So with that, I leave you, that might be the next logical step when you're looking at a fully immersive virtual reality world. We'll all get chips on our head courtesy of Elon Musk, and we all go to live on Mars, and we can pick monkeys. We can pick bananas from using robot arms.
That's also another
but that's
full 1 hour ethical debate.
That's our future.
Amazing. And over to you, Charles. How do you best believe that brands should prepare for Web3 e-commerce?
That's a very good question. I mean, at AWS, we've been talking to different companies who are asking questions about Web3 e-commerce. And, there are a couple of things. For me, it falls down to like 3 or 4 main things. One, first, you have to get people an understanding and excited about blockchain NFTs. Looking at using like token gated commerce, So token gated commerce is kind of like a direct link between these technologies and e-commerce. It gives customers a reason to buy your NFT and invest more loyalty in your brand. So you're enabling e-commerce using tokens and as a means of doing that. Obviously, the next thing is the metaverse experience we talked about earlier. So the metaverse would be no different from what I talked about before. The metaverse experience, such as product previewing with customization. I talked about the the meta dealership. Um, that can have an impact on buying behavior, and it can be paired with customer avatars, which will give customers a reason to interact with your web presence. The third is gamifying your shopping experience. If you want to engage a younger audience in a game, you have to kind of engage with those audience. You can use the NFTs to unlock parts of your shopping experience, and this will make it feel more interactive and generate buzz without having to feel like a traditional advertising. So you want to gamify. The last, obviously, not least, is accepting cryptocurrency payments. So accepting cryptocurrency payment shows you statistical advantages. It helps you creating large order value. And at a minimum, it helps, a lot of the crypto enthusiasts who currently have a lot of crypto, but don't know how to spend it. And you can build trust with your customers by accepting crypto payments and at least providing payment rails. So, and all of these things are things that I attracted me to Fleemint, because Fleemint is actually doing all of these things. So, and that's what I would advise other brands to do.
Fantastic. And Sean, how do you think that NFTs will impact e-commerce as a whole?
Well, I think one of the things about NFTs is that we have to remember they're basically a contract, okay? And it's a contract on the blockchain that allows people to know that they own something and know who has owned it and where it came from. So once we get around that, we know that it's not just a JPEG, right? Because I think for the non-adopters out there, they just see all these crazy pictures and think, why is this picture of a rock worth $168 million? And it doesn't make sense. And quite frankly, I agree with them in some respect. When you start seeing that contract being the contract of ownership of a house or the contract of ownership of an actual tangible item that you can have in the real world, and then if you are in the metaverse, you have your twin in the metaverse, you start to see how it weaves together. And I think it's really, really important to see that this kind of technology has to be codependent with all of the other elements of the technology. Just building one part and hoping that something else comes along to make it useful, I don't think that's the right way to continue. And I think what we're doing at Fleemint, and I'm sure you agree, James, is to try and make everything we do applicable to the real world for the real users to understand that what they're doing has an actual outcome in reality.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Our customers and the way that we're building and scaling the platform is to automatically be linked into brands, into Web3, and allowing our customers and consumers to gain access to Web2 businesses, but weaving in Web3, simplifying the entire process. And I really think that that's absolutely amazing for something that we're achieving and achieved so far. So far so good. Moving swiftly on. Amazing. Right, so for the final question, because we're now racing against time, and I guess, Charles, it'll be for you for you to bring us home. But how do you feel after obviously the monkey with the machine on his head? How do you feel that AI and machine learning is going to impact e-commerce?
Have we lost Charles?
You need to unmute, Charles.
Sorry about it. Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
No
So
worries.
in terms of AI, I mean, we're already beginning to see it transform our industry. Like, Amazon definitely leverages AI, on a regular basis in e-commerce, and it features in how we store and our store looks like, how we feature, how we sell our products to customers. And it also allows us to kind of offer a personalized shopping experience with the help of things like buying assistance and our AI solutions, is helping to improve the online shopping experience for customers and retailers. So one of the other ways that it will help is helping to identify customer behavior and then analyze that data using big data analytics to help with engagement, and also helping to segment and target customers. And pulling off that highly customized experience is the key to the prosperity of any business, especially in e-commerce. So, and I was at the recent AWS reInvent conference last week, and there were like many use cases where they're using AI services to, provide things like ready-made intelligence for applications and for customer workflows, and allowing using the AI services, AWS AI services like SageMaker to integrate your applications, address common use cases like personalized recommendations, modernizing contact centers, improving safety and security, and also improving customer engagement. We had lots of use cases like customers who were like NHS using automate portions of their healthcare contact center to answer common questions. So we feel that AI is going to be part and parcel of kind of the growth of e-commerce, and we see that beginning to be adopted even in Web3 as well.
Amazing. Cool. Guys, Sean, Charles, thank you so much for your inputs today and everything that we've discussed. For all the listeners and watchers out there, next week will be Mr. Jimmy Austin, who's our head of property inside of Fleamint, with our next advisor, Jordan Kostelak, who's also a property expert across Asia, America, and Europe. So that's another super exciting presentation that will be happening next week. Now, to end this, I guess, Sean, would you like to give the final key points and the benefits to anybody looking to invest or to take part in the Fleamint project?
Bear with me, I'm on just a mic. Sorry, I muted myself there. Sorry. I guess the main thing is really that we're available for you guys to talk to, and you can interact with us and learn from us, and we want to help everybody get on their Web3 journey. This goes for both customers and for clients in terms of corporate brands that we help out. So I'm sure there'll be links in the description below. You can come and chat to us in Discord or give us a shout on Twitter. We're around. We want people to engage with us. We are trying to build this for you, right? So if you're a business and you need to know about Web 3.0, we can help you because we have the knowledge. If you're a user and you want to interact with other types of businesses, come and tell us who you want. At the moment we have a lot of property, we have a lot of financial products, we have wine, we have art. We want more of everything, and we want everybody to be able to utilize this new medium and this new way of getting out there. And I wanted to mention one very brief thing on the AI thing. One of the reasons Charles is an advisor is because we're not AI experts, okay? And there's the whole fear of, the evil AI is going to tell us what we want. But actually, from what I'm learning about it, it's not so much it tells us what we want. It learns what we actually want, right? So it doesn't tell us what to think. It really just helps sort of distill our thought processes and make things more efficient, right? So in that respect, I can see it going very much hand in hand with the whole customizability of Web 3.0 and the metaverse. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. But yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you again, Charles. Thank you again, Sean. Please, everybody watching, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and click and hit the bell. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.